We might not realize it, but right now in America, we are witnessing a groundbreaking shift in the sport of track and field.
Outside of the Olympics or World Championships, it's very unclear what are the most important races.
It's the most disorganized professional sport that I've ever seen. And I dabble, like I do other niche sports, and it's still way better than track.
Over the past couple of years, the sport underwent some of the most groundbreaking transitions of its modern history. In the wake of global catastrophe, everything had to change.
It's not like necessarily a football season, a basketball season where every week or every day you're talking about a great performance or so-and-so's in a little bit of a rut and you can see them work out of that.
And that disruption sent a massive scare through the entire industry.
Man, what is the future of domestic racing?
Competitions and meets came to a grinding halt at an international scale, and the domestic future of the sport had lost nearly all sense of certainty.
You really need like this special, understanding of the sport to know how to even follow it.
Because the larger governing bodies were slow to adapt, bound by their Achilles heel of their size and bureaucracy, grassroots movement had entered the stage at an unprecedented manner, drawing in professional athletes from all over the world in search of new opportunities to compete.
Being back out here and racing against so many other competitors and just feeling like that energy is unlike anything else. And I think it's given me a whole new appreciation for that too.
In a brave new world of the sport, we saw some of the deepest fields ever assembled in some of the most unlikely of places.
And then the more people can identify with someone in the race, and I think it gives, just plants the seed that you too could be out here doing this. And I think that's a really powerful thing.
We saw a resurgence in domestic opportunities, a new type of athlete experience, new media and journalism, and a budding young audience hungry to get as much of the content about it as they could find.
The presentation of the sport is so important, especially on TV. And I think you can't just settle for it's going to be on ESPN and people are going to tune in, and I think the production has to be good.
Viewership is very low in running, and but their participation is very high. You've got events with tens of thousands of people running them, and yet how often is there a live feed of a running event where tens of thousands are watching? Part of this is in the infrastructure of the sport then. How can we create more opportunities for people to be more directly involved?
Why do people wear jerseys in other sports? Because they're connected to a team or they're connected to an athlete, or they watch that athlete play at a high school tournament and now they're playing at Duke, and then they're playing in the league, and so they're watching them play on ESPN and they're repping their jersey.
New forms of media cemented themselves as the future of the sport's storytelling, and events were created out of necessity just to ensure that athletes and fans alike never had to miss a beat during a season riddled with unknowns.
Because when things get back to normal, we will have to travel around the world. So I don't want it to be so foreign anymore where they just then living in these sort of protected race environments that were really manicured. So for me, I want to make sure that I go out and seek out some competition and just keep these guys active. So having this meet in Texas was fantastic.
Through it all, one thing became crystal clear. Track and field in America is here to stay.
I think it hurts the same. So, it's the same amount of work, it's the same amount of effort and pain. So I think it's just a sport that's really inclusive for everybody.
All over the nation, a new wave of excitement, ownership, and investment began appearing in corners of the sport that had been neglected for years, if not forever.
I think the sport would really benefit from having smaller events, more focused event groups, in different locations that expose the sport to a wider variety of people.
However, while participation in the sport is at an all-time high, the harsh reality is that the national viewership alone would argue a far different story.
That to me has always been such a cool question to ask. It's hey, do you get it? You're oh yeah, I get it. Oh, 330, 1500, I get it. Or 145, 800, I get it. These times, But people don't get times. People don't get the events.
So what needs to change? What can we learn from those at the center of the sport, the athletes?
So the NCAA does a great job. I mean, when they have their meets on ESPN, I feel like maybe more people watch that than they do pro meets. So maybe the USATF or whatever organization that decides to host all these domestic meets can learn from the NCAA.
For a lot of these kids, you go from college and have a full support system of everything's pretty much taken care of in the sense that you're not worrying about paying rent and paying and keeping the lights on and paying for food and travel to these meets. So it's kind of such a big transition. So hopefully we can just see some new brands, some new sponsors flow into the sport of track and field that can help kind of bridge that gap.
For starters, I feel like just the whole one sponsorship thing that we have as professional athletes where we can only wear one sponsor on our jerseys. I think that rules need to change. I feel like, like NASCAR drivers where they have multiple sponsors on their vehicles. I feel like that can just bring in outside companies, outside people, outside donors into the sport, bringing more money.
And that's the best way for like those companies to get value is like people watching the event, like this guy, has a Nike swoosh on his chest. Like, let's check him out. Like, what kind of shoes is he wearing? I want to be similar to this guy.
They've seen that there's a big disparity in the amount of success on like the first 2 years in a professional career. And so, yeah, I know like USATF is doing that, and that's kind of the one organization that has helped me in that capacity, but I'm not really sure that there's that much other support out there.
Probably just from the top down, there needs to be a little bit of restructuring. It seems like, some of the people at the top are making a lot of money, and it's not trickling down to the athletes very well.
What about those that work in the background? The people who hope to grow the sport of track and field day in and day out from the backstage.
We're not going to sacrifice anything when it comes to athletic performance. We want that to be like the pinnacle when athletes come to our meets, but very little is put into the audience.
Coaches, agents, meet directors, media.
I take what I do really seriously because I hope that it becomes more popular to become a female coach at the elite level and professional level.
The USA Track and Field doesn't seem to care about making money. So if they're not operating from a standpoint of at least, like a lot of people have problems with the UFC in terms of like but they pay the athletes way better than track, but at least they are trying to make money.
From the inside out, I would say I feel like runners sharing more of their lives on Instagram or YouTube or anything would really help because people are very interested in other people's lives. I think it's just a matter of putting out the content.
I think I make it seem like it is achievable. Like anyone can go out there and do it. I think I'm pretty good, but I just work hard and show my videos online and people definitely have appreciated it.
It's not like we're basketball or football. There's not really any huge funding or branding for it, so I feel like that's an area that we're trying to fill as well.
They all have a voice that impacts the sport and the way that we as fans consume it.
My name is Spencer Brown, and I show up for the sport.
What if we brought everyone together to lay it out in the same room?
My name's Andrew Weeding, and I show up for this sport.
What could we learn if we all just listened to each other?
My name is Shalane Flanagan, and I show up for the sport.
On the surface, track and field is quite simple.
My name's Ryan Krauser, and I show up for the sport.
We run, we jump, and we throw.
My name is Isaiah Harris, and I show up for the sport.
Just about everything else in the sport, though, is...
My name's Clayton Murphy, and I show up for the sport.
Pretty complicated.
My name's Kira D'Amato, and I show up for the sport.
Maybe it doesn't have to be.
My name's Cole Hawker, and I show up for the sport.
If we can collect enough stories...
My name's Chris Chavez, and I show up for the sport.
From every corner of the industry...
My name is Jesse Williams from Sound Running, and I show up for the sport.
Maybe we can understand how decisions from the top can impact everyone else.
My name is Elise Cranny, and I show up for the sport.
Maybe we can put our heads together and redefine traditional platforms of viewership.
My name is Danny Mackey, and I show up for the sport.
We can drive the catalyst and raise the sport to a new level for all those involved.
My name's Devin Allen, and I show up for the sport.
Together, we can battle complacency with our collective voice.
My name is Pete Julian, and I show up for the sport.
And together, we can all show up for the sport in our own way. My name is Alex Andre, and I show up for the sport. Do you?